Welcome to the Ellis Talker Show. I'm DV LeBron. Do you ever wonder about the state of this country and conversations when it comes to political conversations? If you've been online, that these things can get really ugly. If you go on any single Twitter or X now, you go on any of these sites and you talk any kind of politics, and basically it devolves into fascist or neocon or leftist, or there's always something that some name calling that it gets to. Just continuing what I do on the show, I love to have veterans on here that have found purpose outside of their military career. And Mr. Thomas Moore is no exception to that. Retired infantryman and PoLitorium founder, which is focusing on making these discussions better. Thank you so much for coming on the show, sir.
I look forward to having a good talk.
Can you tell my audience a little bit about you before we start getting into the politicals of it?
Yeah, definitely. Like you mentioned, I'm a retired Army infantryman. I was in the infantry for a number of years. I got out during the 2020 elections when it was a pretty chaotic time in the political sphere in America. For a couple of years during that time, I thought a lot about what it would take to fix these issues. And after about 2 years of coming up with, because I'd come up with an idea for something that could work, and then I'd be like, well, it's going to work because of such specific thing. There's always something that would get in the way of whatever idea I had. I spent a little bit of time like writing screenplays that were based in the world of politics, essentially. And because I was just looking for a way to help in that with that political discourse thing. Eventually I did get to the idea of Poitorium. Like I mentioned, I kept coming up with things that would go wrong. So I spent a good while teaching myself a little bit of developmental skills, got decent enough to build an MVP, minimal viable product, just good enough to show people, good enough for people to use. A couple of months after really launching and doing a little bit of marketing, we actually got picked up by a couple decent publications like Business Insider, Yahoo News, ran some stories about it. And then from there, I managed to find my development team, two developers that are brilliant in what they do. They're full stack developers and data specialists and all of that good stuff, all the stuff that I'm not. So they rebuilt the whole platform from the ground up, and they actually rebuilt it like 3 times because they just are kind of perfectionists and what they really believed in the product too. So they're my co-founders. They do this just out of the belief that it is going to work, not for any kind of paycheck or anything like that. So they have a strong passion for it as well. They're actually from India and live in Saudi Arabia. Being from India, the world's largest democracy, and they say that India has a lot of corruption and a lot of problems in political discourse too. Once we started talking, they were all over the idea. They really wanted to be in.
What is PoLitorium and overall? And we'll get on how it changes the conversation.
Yeah, PoLitorium is a social platform, just like all of the others. It does essentially all of the same things. There's posts and pictures and videos and comments on all of exactly what you would expect on a social platform. The difference is that we try to always encourage respect first and foremost, because I don't think conversation can really progress in a good direction without maintaining a level of respect for one another. I don't feel it can be a beneficial conversation for anything except maybe making somebody feel good about themselves, putting somebody else down if it's not respectful. So that's the core of all of it. Now I guess would probably be a good time to share my visual, if I can do that.
Of course.
Okay, so what this is, and I've been sharing this on all of the podcasts I've been going on because I feel like it's just a good visual to really represent the foundation of features and functions and philosophies that PoLitorium is built on, of what will make PoLitorium work, essentially. And I call it respectful discourse at scale because the question really is, how do you maintain respect at scale? Getting 100 people to be respectful with one another is easy. Getting 1,000 is decent. It's not too hard. But once you are getting 10,000 people, 100,000, 1 million people, how do you maintain a level of respect? How do you get them to play along essentially and be respectful towards one another. So over the years, this is a system that I've come up with. Step one, obviously, being fostering respectful discourse, political and social discourse. That is the core foundation of all of it, is always encouraging respect and open-mindedness and a willingness to communicate with one another. Without step one, the whole thing doesn't work. And you'll see that it's a circle because this is a never-ending process, an always growing, always adapting and evolving process of building an atmosphere and a platform for respectful discourse. So we always encourage that everybody come to the platform with an open mind and a willingness to learn and to debate and to talk to one another. Step two, leading into how do you break echo chambers?
This is a big one.
This is one of the biggest ones. And you'll hear me say this a lot, that this is one of the most important aspects. But breaking echo chambers, because X is become an echo chamber for the right. Reddit is a full-blown echo chamber for the left. Facebook, who knows where they're at ever since this last election, flip-floppy right now. So who knows what side will become of that, but you can almost guarantee it's going to be an echo chamber for one side or the other. It's how it always happens. So the way that we have come to figure how do you break these echo chambers, the way that we have decided we want to try to do it is through putting something in front of people that forces them to grow. And what that is, so just like on X and Facebook, you have different feeds of posts, right? You have your home feed, which is the people that you follow, the specific who you're interested in. Then you have and this is what step two is, the suggested feed. And what the suggested feed is an AI algorithm that feeds into your suggested feed post a bunch of posts and content and news and just everything that is counter to whatever political party you are, which is something that you select inside the app. You say, I follow in line, not follow in line, but like a Democrat, or I'm a Republican, I'm an independent. So the suggested feed is going to show you posts and content from other points of view. It's going to challenge your viewpoint. And this is, going to be something that is going to encourage people to see posts from the other side and not just have this revolving door of people validating what you believe, because that's what an echo chamber does. You have an idea and so does everybody else, the exact same idea. So what the suggested feed is going to do is show you posts from people that don't have the same idea and news from people that don't have the same idea. So it will allow people to really open their mind to other ideas and philosophies and policies and politics.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
you're good.
When they come into PoLitorium, are you doing something that's letting them know from a get, this is not your regular thing of politics where you get to spew out whatever. This is going to be a whole different experience on how you look at these hot button topics, because we live in echo chambers. That's why I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad that you put it on there. In all these different media, all these different social medias, people live for their echo chamber. They love their echo chamber. Their echo chamber is comfortable and it confirms their bias and it's great. I don't have to really challenge what I believe because what I believe is right. It's just the other person's the one that's wrong.
Right.
So how do you get them to understand that going into it?
The last iteration of PoLitorium, the version that I built, what we did was a kind of introduction to the application, to the platform. If it's a user's first time logging in, we had this little animated guy that's like waving to you and introduces himself and then says, welcome to PoLitorium, all of that good stuff. And it shows them all of where the buttons are, what everything does, and would explain the expectations of adhering to the community ethos and maintaining respectful always is not a part of the app. So right now, as it stands, we launched the iOS beta 2 days ago. So this version is in beta mode, and it probably will be for a couple of weeks as we launch Android and do some debugging, everything like that. And then the final 1.0 version is launched. But that is something that will definitely a tutorial of some sort explaining the expectations of the platform and being respectful, introducing to them stuff like the suggested feed and telling them why it's important for them to frequently or at very least periodically sometimes go to the suggested feed and be willing to listen to other people's thoughts and ideas. That's how we grow together, by hearing one another out.
Talk to me.
The reputation system is very similar to the karma system on Reddit, right? It is the sum of your likes and dislikes, or upvotes, downvotes, whatever you call it, right? Across the entire platform. So on comments, on posts, it's the sum of your ups and downs that people have given you. But instead of something like Reddit, where you just basically you have your karma on your profile, our reputation system is right next to a user's name everywhere across the entire platform. And what this means is that every user has to carry that reputation, their own reputation point, or whatever that number, right? They have to carry that across the entire platform always. That means every time you're, say, about to engage with somebody, you can see what the quality of engagement and content that they usually produce is. If they have a negative 362 reputation, then they probably are trolls or just create poor content or whatever. And I think that will help users be like, I'm not going to spend my time engaging with this person because it's a waste of time if they're just a troll. And we believe that will discourage trolling on the platform. Step away from and political discourse is all of the trolling, all of the gotcha moments and setting traps for each other, trying to get that gotcha on somebody for that dopamine hit. So the reputation system, again, I think is one of the most important elements on the platform for a lot of different reasons, but primarily to encourage users to always be authentic and genuine and create quality content, be it just a comment to somebody on their content or a post or whatever of their own.
And eventually, with something like that, you'll get the trolls arguing the trolls, and they could just be in troll world of Poitorium, and then everybody else gets to have better Discord, I imagine. So AI tone and phrase detection. Talk to me.
Okay, so this is another way to counter trolling hate, meaning, like, I'm not saying hate speech because I think hate speech, it really just means the speech you hate. Some people call certain speech hate speech and other people call other stuff hate speech. So I'm not saying hate speech. I'm saying being hateful, right? Being just super condescending to somebody, being disingenuous in the way that you're engaging with people. Our data expert created an AI algorithm that is trained to detect tone and phrase, right? So things like sarcasm and the condescending attitudes. And so this will be a process of really growing and the AI learning to make sure that it's really detecting all of the right things. But that is another way that I think will counter trolling, spam, promotion, things like that. All of the things that fill the political discourse world that just all needs to be filtered out.
The I am smarter than you is going to get AI detected. That is I love where this is going. I love how you're doing this because you're removing the most awful barriers to communication. It looks like you really thought about those things and how do I remove them. That's pretty cool. Now, how does the incentivizing ID verification go?
So incentivizing the ID verification is a process similar to what you might see on PayPal or somewhere where you're required to verify your identity. Now, I want to say that on PoLitorium, you're not required to verify your identity. You can remain anonymous. I don't want people to be required because that's going to cut a lot of people off from being able to engage, right? But what it is I do think the more people that are verified as a real person and as themselves, the better. So we offer certain features, like just to throw one out there that I've been using a lot to explain this is petitions. I don't want real people creating petitions, really trying to make changes in their community. And then those just get drowned out by a ton of like bots or people making stupid petitions that they're not real. They're not really trying to make posts or make change. So then there's just, 10,000 petitions. And then that one serious one that somebody's really trying to make some change gets just drowned out by all of that. So petition seems a necessary feature that you need to be verified. And the way that the verification process works is we use an API system with a third party, and you scan the barcode on the back of your ID, and then you take a selfie of yourself. And that third party then verifies that, yes, this person and this profile is who they say they are. And then instead of like on X, for example, they just charge $16 or whatever for their blue check mark. You get that verified badge or whatever you want to call it by actually verifying who you are. And again, I think this is something that will encourage quality content because you're representing you at that point. You're not an anonymous account making some sort of outlandish content or comment. You are you. And we all want to be the best versions of ourselves. And as well, one of the more important features on Poitorium is the third feed, the third post feed that we didn't get to earlier in the conversation is the local feed. And what the local feed is based on your approximate location or you can type it in. And if you don't want to give your location, you type in your city. Based on that, you'll have a feed that is specific to your community, to a user's community. So they can always keep up with what's going on specifically around them. And the reason for that is I think change starts locally. The most important part of politics is local politics, in my opinion. We're all polarized over federal and national politics that nobody can even name their mayor anymore. People don't know who their city council members are. Very few people, I'd say, can even name their governor.
That's why I started this show, because people didn't know their local, and I had no idea who the local was. So I said, let me see if I could get them on. So I do these local elections. I do these local budgets for the different school districts. And you're right. In Texas, the local government has an outsized role in your life. So it is very important.
And so all of these features combined, basically, what it does is what I'm really trying to encourage is, and not like everybody, just people that are on board with this, is getting rid of that old guard in politics. And the old guard, what I'm calling the old guard, basically those people that have been sitting on city council for 30 years, running uncontested, unopposed, people that just they win the election every year just because they win the election every year. Basically, it's this cycle of nobody has $400,000 to knock this person out of that seat, so nobody runs against. So then it just remains the same always. And so what this does between the reputation system, the local feed, verifying who you are, people are able to build a name for themselves in their local politics. You don't need a campaign and running smear campaigns on TV and putting yard signs up. You don't need all of that because you're talking directly to your local community every day in the local feed. And they know that you are verified. You're building a reputation, not just the reputation points on the platform, but you're building a reputation inside of your community. So this incentivizing ID verification really falls in line with all of that.
So this transparency, infraction board, this is a scary thing when you think about all the different social medias and their transparency boards, or they call it different things, these boards that you have no real access to or something. Talk to me about this. What do you envision this step 6 being?
So this is something that I thought a long time on. One of the main issues, I guess I'd call it, that I have with these social platforms is the amount of control that they have over our speech. They can silence people, mute them, ban them, limit their reach, whatever they want to do to make sure that nobody's seeing what they say. And so what I thought long and hard about is how can I take that power out of PoLitorium's hands? And the process of doing that is a completely public board that is just basically displays as people are getting infractions. It's automated, it's updated, and you can literally just watch it. And so say somebody gets an infraction for spamming, trying to just promote their lawn care company, something completely irrelevant and just doesn't fall into the rules of the community ethos, right? So they get a mute. They get muted. It's not a hard infraction, but they get muted for a day. So you would see that as soon as it happened, it would populate on the infraction board. Next to it, what you would see is who the moderator was that gave the infraction. And the reason for that is holding our moderators accountable, making sure that our moderators are not moderating based on their political biases, trying to steer conversations or mute one side or the other, but really holding those moderators accountable. The whole country can see that infraction board essentially as it happens, as people get the infractions And then the most important part of all of it is whatever user got an infraction, whenever they're viewing the board, they have the option to appeal the infraction. And they're not appealing the infraction to us. They're appealing it to the community. So they would explain why they believe what they did to get the infraction did not violate the community ethos. And then the community could vote yes or no. Do we think that this person violated this or violated our sacred community space of respectful discourse? Or do we think that they did not? I've thought a long time about how can I take all of these elements of moderation out of our hands and give it to the community and put speech back into the hand of the people.
I love that. I love that. You have a very well thought out system on how to make this better. I don't know if you're done with the infographic, but I wanted to talk to you on it. Where do you envision PoLitorium going? When you made this up, what were your thoughts on where you'd like to see it go?
To start with, I really hope for a nice, steady, healthy incline of growth, right? I don't want to see a huge trend uptick of going viral or anything like that, because I think it's going to take some people a couple of tries to be respectful. Some people are going to come to the platform and they're not going to be able to contain their troll. They're going to immediately troll somebody and they're going to get muted or banned based on whatever the violation was. And then maybe in 3 months or 6 months or a year, they're like, let me try this again. It's going to take practice, because being respectful and being willing to hear out opposing ideas, it's a difficult, uncomfortable, challenging thing. And it's going to take some practice from people. So I don't want to see a big viral growth, because I recognize that it's going to take people a little bit of time. Some people, they're ready for it right now. They'll get it right off the bat. And then other people, it might take them 5 times of being banned and coming back, because they're not used to the way that this works. What I believe is that it's not just political and social discourse that's the problem. It's the way that we communicate altogether. And that's what I aim to try to mend, because I think the internet and social media overall has really damaged the way that we communicate with one another. So it's not just politics. It's overall how we talk to each other. That's the problem. And a lot of people are going to struggle with trying to change that about themselves. It's going to be challenging and it's going to be uncomfortable. So I think that this is something that needs to be slow growth. But what I would like to see is that it just grows and grows into other communities locally and nationally. And then eventually what we hope for is scaling into every democratic nation. Every country where we're allowed to be based on law, that's where we would like to see ourselves, because it's not just the United States that needs to fix all these problems. It's India, it's the UK, it's Germany, it's Mexico and Canada. So we have a plan of the first countries that we'll scale into once we're ready, but we're focusing right now, obviously, on the United States. What it's going to be is everybody will have the same PoLitorium, but separated from one another. So America, you'll only see American politics. Canada they won't engage with American politics, because we think if you want to do that, you can do that on anywhere else, Reddit, X, Facebook, Substack, or wherever. PoLitorium will be everybody focusing on them and trying to patch their politics up and their political discourse. It won't be a global town hall.
Yeah. No, I love the idea, because it keeps it closer to the issues at hand. And you're wanting to improve the discourse in this country. And you got to start in this country, and you have to keep it there. And you're trying to improve your developers, the ones that are helping you. They're trying to improve the Discord in India. So when they get there, they want to keep it India. I love the idea. Again, another veteran trying to change the world. And this one is the most important, because if there's one thing that we understand is when you stop talking to each other, you start killing each other. And I hope I don't get hit for that using that word, but it's true. We've seen it in other countries. When you stop talking, you start shooting, and it's just
100%.
So if we don't improve the way that we talk to each other, we're not going to survive as a country or have the cohesion that we need to continue.
A lot of the rhetoric today is don't give fascists a voice, don't platform fascists, whatever. It's the rhetoric on both sides. And currently the way that our political system is set up, it just breeds polarization and divide. And so that's really what we're trying to combat is people not being against each other, not being enemies, just opponents, which there's a difference there. And that's what we're trying to get back to is not seeing our fellow country people as the enemy because we have to live together. We have to exist together. It's really just that simple. And deplatforming people, taking away their ability to engage in any kind of discourse is just wrong. It's un-American. It's not what we are supposed to do. So yeah, I guess I'll wrap up with just saying, so PoLitorium's open beta has launched on iOS. The Android version of PoLitorium is expected to launch in about a week. So we're on our way. We're a small team, but we're passionate about what we do and we're really growing. Here soon, we'll be launching the full 1.0 version and start grinding it out, just trying to do our part to try to heal or mend the political discourse in the United States.
I can't wait to be a part of that platform. I look forward to you getting online and I love what you're doing here. Can you stick around after the show real quick?
Yeah, definitely.